Hello, this is Stan from Tability, and this is day 5 of my series on planning and outcome-driven roadmaps. And so today I'm going to talk about what happens during the quarter. So up to now, we looked at how you can come up with a plan. So let me start the keynote. So this is what we did. So we created a set of OKRs for the quarter for a company that does NPS as a service. And so here we have some objectives and key results. And those are the outcomes that we want to have. And then from the set of OKRs in the previous video, we looked at how you can then derive your roadmap, and which is your set of activities. And for the roadmap, rather than using a timeline, we adopted this now, next, later format. And the reason for preferring a now, next, later type of roadmap versus timeline is that this will make it much easier for us to adjust things as we go, because the timeline puts a lot more emphasis in delivering projects at a certain date. When you build a timeline, it's almost like you commit to like things that are 6 months in the future, whereas a now, next, later roadmap puts the emphasis on what you think is the best, what are the best bets for us now, what are the things we should do next that are going to deliver value, and then later on, what do we think that we should do? And this type of roadmap is much more suitable to have an outcome-driven cycle. And so in an outcome-driven cycle, what you do is you start with the outcomes, which are the OKRs that we talked about. Then you design a set of activities. So if we want to get those results, then this is what we should be doing as a team. But then you can't just say, okay, we decided those activities in day 1 of the quarter, and then we don't come back to it, and then we just execute until the end of the quarter. What you want to do instead is that every week you want to do some work and then look at how this work is impacting the outcomes that you want. Are things moving in the right direction? If so, then you keep going. But if not, then maybe you need to change your roadmap. And in some cases, you'll realize that perhaps the outcomes that you want to achieve are actually the wrong ones, or you're tracking the wrong type of key results. And so this is kind of like the healthy outcome-driven cycle that we want to establish. And this type of roadmap is much more suited to have that feedback loop. Now, to go into a bit more detail about what a weekly ritual looks like, this is the workflow that we have at Tability. And I would suggest, it's not just for us. So many teams can adopt that, and it's something that is actually pretty classic. So you start Monday by looking at your OKRs and the roadmap review. You do an OKR and a roadmap review. And so the idea is here you do a little, outcomes activity cycle review. Then you're going to adjust your roadmap and work on these activities during the week, and then do your demos at the end on Friday to look at, what as the team worked on. But what I want to insist on is why would we do this on a Monday rather than a Friday? So once you work, so you want to let people be able to enjoy the weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, people are going to check out. They're going to spend time with their friends and family and loved ones. And you don't want them to come back to work on Monday and the first thing they do is that they look at features. What you want to do is when people come back on Monday, the first thing to do is to refresh the context. What are we trying to achieve this quarter? What are my goals for the week? Or what are the things that are the top priorities, and how are we trying to achieve that? And then once you have this context in mind, it becomes much easier for people to make the right decisions during the week, because every decision will be made while keeping that priority stack in mind. So, and what I mean by that is on a Wednesday, someone is going to be much more able to, for instance, decide to cut scope, or to pick whether or not something should be linked to a particular project. Now I want to zoom onto that OKR plus roadmap review, and this is what it looks like. So you want to really start by looking at the outcomes first, And then based on the progress on outcomes, which is the progress on OKRs, you'll think about whether or not you want to adjust a roadmap. The reason to do it like that is because if you start by looking at your roadmap and talking about features, people will get into detailed discussions about blockers and dependencies, which are interesting discussions, but they might not be the right ones, right? So if you start talking about a feature that is not in the critical state, and you have like a lot more items that should be worked on because they're supposed to help us move a critical OKR in a good direction, you want to make sure that you have the right sense of priorities during that meeting. So start by looking at the OKRs, look at the progress on it, and then it will be quite easy to then adjust your roadmap. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is about adjusting the roadmap part. A lot of product teams work in sprints, which are 2 or 3 weeks. And so the idea of this workflow is not to change things for that team every week. So when you adjust your roadmap, you don't adjust what's happening now. It's about thinking about what you have coming up next, and how your backlog for the later pile is ordered. So if you think about it, adjusting the roadmap, it's not about this part, it's about what's coming up next and what's coming up later. People need commitment. Once they started to work on something, you might be able to downsize the scope of stuff, but you can't just change stuff on flight, right? You need to give your team enough time for them to finish the work. Now, about how to track progress, this is going to be focused on the OKRs part, and I really want to talk about like how do you do this progress review every week. So when you update progress on something like this, and something like a key result or a goal, there are 5 questions that you need to answer, and those 5 questions need to be answered every week. So first of all, where are you today? And that's a progress, and that's pretty simple. You just look at a KPI, and you can just say the number is 98. Like if you want to have like a set of weekly active users, increase that number, then you can say, hey, we're at 98 today. Now that's good, but what's better is to compare that number to the expectation. Where are you supposed to be today according to where you're trying to go, and how much time has passed? And this is important because if you say that you have 98 weekly active users, well, it's good if you were supposed to be at 45, but it's bad if you are supposed to be at 500, right? So expectation is important. Trends, it's also an important thing. I'll explain trends later on, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but trends help you understand if you're accelerating and decelerating. And I would argue that it's much more important than anything else that you can have in that list. And I'll show you why, right? So root cause, it's like when you look at progress, expectation, and trends, can you explain why this situation is, what we have the current situation? Like how did we get to where we are today? And so this is looking at the past and explaining the past. And the plan is looking at the future and thinking about, what actions can we, what are the things that we can do to improve the situation, or should we do things differently? I like the question, should you do something differently? Because if everything's fine, then you don't really need to change your plan. You can just keep on tracking stuff. But more often than not, there's always like 1 or 2 action items that we'll get. Now, this is what we typically see when we talk to teams, and OKRs are in a spreadsheet, and it looks like this. So you have like an objective, and for each one of the objectives, you'll have a set of key results. And the way it maps to those questions, there's a column for progress, which contains like the percentage for progress, and the color to indicate if it's on track or off track or at risk. And then the comment, there's a column for comment where people put the root cause and the plan of the action items. So that's not too bad, but as I said, the problem is that it doesn't talk about trends. And the reason why trends are important is because, assume that this is an example that I give you, and this is like, okay, we want to increase the number of weekly active users. This is where we're starting. This is where we want to go. That's our North Star. And we looked at things today, and it seems that we're above, right, above that growth trajectory. And so we're pretty happy, but we're just looking at a snapshot in time. And so a trend, what if I showed you this picture and I said to you, well, you know what, the way we got to today is that we started really well and now we're decelerating. And a lot of things can explain that, right? So especially weekly activities is like we could have done like a bad campaign where a lot of people are signing up, and then on week one it looks like we're having a lot of people, but then people are not sticking. And so if I follow this trend, it looks like we're going to crash. And that's a much different picture and a much different feeling that I should be having when I look at that number. And so in a spreadsheet, that could be this number where it looks green and it looks like we're doing well, but in reality, we're about to crash. So trends are really important. And so for me, what my preferred approach when we do OKRs is every week you come up, you plot yourself on a graph and you add a note like this. So every week you need to plot yourself on that graph and add a note. And that note needs to contain the root cause and the plan. And each note explains what happened, what we believe the situation is, and what should we be doing to improve the situation. So this, if you want to do that with a spreadsheet, it might require a bit of effort to get that done. One trick would be, for instance, to have like a progress column every week to help you visualize that. But unless this is actually now, I've tried to not really be do this as like a sales presentation, but this is exactly what we do at Tability. And at Tability, so what you can, when you look at a key result or a goal, this is what it looks like. So we do have that graph that is generated automatically for you. And that is like progressing expectations and trends together. Then the root cause is contained for each one of these dots. You'll have actually a piece of text that you can see here. And then on the right side, you can capture tasks and action items that you like every time you come to the progress. So I thought I'd show you what it looks like. Like this is the same thing that I'm talking about. And so I can really go week by week and see how things have progressed. And if I'm curious about like a particular dot, like I have a better example to show you here. Here, we have like a big jump here, and I can click on it to get the context, to see, what happened at that time in context. So for us, this is about like really trying to help teams being outcome driven. But to go back to my presentation, and so the way we work at Tability, so what we do is like every Monday we start by looking at this and we'll update progress on this thing. And then we're going to look at a roadmap, which is in Trello and has the same model, right? So this is like our later thing. This is what we want to do next, and this is what we're working on now. Then we keep a backlog of all the things that I've shipped. Right, so let me start that again. That's it for me. And so this presentation, once again, was about, really thinking about how you can, I'm going to go back to that slide, sorry, how you can get that outcome-driven cycle where, you start the week by looking at your OKRs, adjusting your roadmap if it's necessary, and then work, do your demos, and then do that cycle again. Really important. Adjusting the roadmap is about adjusting what's coming up next and what's coming up later. And you can trust the team. If you do this and you communicate on that with the team, for the people that working on the now items, they're going to look at those things and they'll feel, if you empower them, they'll be able to make sure that they maintain the right type of scope, that they focus on. They don't get distracted, and they focus on the work that is going to help you get to those OKRs and get to those results. All right, I'm going to stop here. Just putting you the links. So if you want to contact me, you can send me an email at stan@tability.io. Find me on Twitter at stanpite, and don't hesitate. So if you want to try this product, you can just try it for free by signing up at tability.io. Thank you.